Welcome to Tokyo Wave, recorded in a live studio in Harajuku, Japan, with your hosts Aaron and Parker. All right, everyone, welcome to episode 23 of Tokyo Wave. We're your hosts, Aaron Randall
and Parker Allen. On Tokyo Wave, we bring you weekly updates from our studio in Harajuku.
Join us in segments featuring this week's top news,
political happenings,
business,
and other random stuff.
To get us started, here are this week's top news highlights.
Tokyo extends request that bars shorten their hours until September 15th.
Japanese tennis stars bow out of matches because of coronavirus and social justice.
Osaka unveils weird googly-eyed logo for 2025 Expo, expressing the brilliance of life.
This week in Japan. All right, so to get us started, Tokyo extends request that bars shorten their hours until September 15th.
Kyoto Newswire has reported that the Tokyo Metropolitan Government has decided to extend a request to establishments serving alcohol and karaoke venues to shorten their hours until September the 15th as part of efforts to stem the spread of the coronavirus.
The request will apply to such establishments in Tokyo's 23 wards rather than the entire metropolitan area, according to an official who spoke on condition of anonymity. The request to close by 10 p.m. was initially scheduled to be lifted at the end of August.
And so we've had this request for a few months now that drinking establishments in Tokyo will be closed by 10 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And so that request was set to expire at the end of August, but the governor decided to extend it for another 2 weeks.
Right.
But it's a conditional extension only applying to Tokyo's 23 wards. So, if you want to get hammered late at night, you gotta go to Fuchu.
Yeah, or come out to Chiba.
You could have done that already. Yeah. So, Tokyo, which still continues to see the highest number of coronavirus cases in Japan, is maintaining its alert at the highest of its 4 levels, which refers to that the infections are spreading. Of course, the infections are spreading slower as we've seen double-digit infection increases over the past few days, as opposed to the triple-digit numbers that we've seen pretty consistently over the past couple of months.
Yeah. As we go into the summer months, it seems to be that was what people were expecting. But it's funny that they're targeting the 23 wards. I think they're talking about a couple wards specifically, Shinjuku and Shibuya and Shinjuku and Roppongi. Yeah. All right, next up, Japanese tennis stars bow out of matches because of coronavirus and social justice.
So 2 tennis stars have bowed out of matches recently, the first being Kei Nishikori, the 2014 U.S. Open runner-up. This Japanese tennis star said that he tested negative for COVID-19 after having 2 positive tests, but he still decided to withdraw from the Grand Slam tournament that begins next week.
Nishikori wrote Wednesday on his mobile app that he is ready to slowly return to practice, but not prepared to compete in the best of 5 set matches.
Nishikori's post said that, "After a long break, I feel that returning in a best of 5 long match setting is not smart until I am fully ready to do so. It's disappointing as I love the US Open and have great memories there. I will start on the clay. Thank you."
The US Open on the hard courts at Flushing Meadows ends on September 13th. Then the tennis tour shifts to red clay in Europe, with tune-up tournaments planned ahead of the scheduled start of the French Open on September 27th.
On August 21st, Nishikori said he tested positive for COVID-19 a second time and had very minimal symptoms.
Another tennis star, Naomi Osaka, said on August 26th she will not play her semifinal at the Western and Southern Open, joining a wave of sports boycotts across the U.S. protesting for social justice and an end to police violence.
Osaka said on Twitter, "Before I'm an athlete, I am a black woman." She asked her fans to focus on issues that are more important than watching tennis and to start engaging in difficult conversations about race.
Osaka wrote in English and Japanese that, "As a black woman, I feel as though there are much more important matters at hand that need immediate attention rather than watching me play tennis."
Her decision comes in the wake of the recent weekend shooting of black male Jacob Blake by police in Wisconsin, and a number of other high-profile cases, including the killing of George Floyd by police in May of this year.
Hours after her comeback quarterfinal win over Estonia's Annette Kontaveit, Osaka, whose father is Haitian and mother is Japanese, announced her decision to join other professional athletes in making a stand by refusing to play.
Osaka's note also said, "I don't expect anything drastic to happen with me not playing, but if I can get a conversation started in a majority white sport, I consider that a step in the right direction."
Athletes in various U.S. sports took action on Wednesday after a video emerged showing Wisconsin police shooting Blake as he walked unarmed to his car on the weekend. The incident comes in the wake of the killing of Floyd and the subsequent worldwide protests it sparked.
In the basketball world, the NBA's Milwaukee Bucks led the way, deciding against taking the court for their scheduled playoff game against the Orlando Magic in Florida. I can see you smiling there, Aaron.
Yeah, no, it's my home team. Yeah.
2 subsequent playoff games were also postponed.
Later, 3 Major League Baseball games were also postponed, as well as 5 Major League Soccer games.
Osaka said she is sickened and exhausted watching the continued genocide of black people at the hands of police, asking, "When will it ever be enough?" and adding hashtags of the names of Blake, Floyd, and other black victims, Elijah McClain and Breonna Taylor. Indeed, when will it ever be enough? The situation in America continues to get worse.
Well, I think Osaka's actions were, in fact, very effective. As we're talking about it right now, people across the world are talking about it and taking notice.
One thing is for certain, by Osaka deciding not to compete in this match, it is definitely making headlines already in Japan. And obviously, through the whole Black Lives Matter movement, there has been limited coverage of what's going on in the United States in Japan, but especially when a half-Japanese athlete like Osaka makes a stand like this, it makes headlines here as well as around the world.
Next up, Osaka unveils googly-eyed logo for their 2025 Expo, expressing the brilliance of life.
On August the 25th, the Mainichi reported that the Japan Association for the 2025 World Exposition unveiled the 2025 Osaka Expo's official logo, in which various googly-eyed red cells are connected into the shape of the Western Japan prefecture of Osaka, where the Expo will be held.
The 2025 Osaka Kansai Expos logo expresses the brilliance of life, which is the theme of the event. It will be used to promote the gala and will also go on display in and outside of the venue during the fair. Parts of the logo for the Japan World Exposition, Osaka 1970, are incorporated into the 2025 Expo's logo design to look like a cell nucleus.
Yeah, it doesn't look like that. The winning logo, created by Team Inari, consisting of graphic designer Tamotsu Shimada and 5 others, was chosen from 5,894 designs that were submitted. The selection committee was led by architect Tadao Ando. Shimada said in a press conference held in the city of Osaka that, "Like the Tower of the Sun, we wanted to create something that was unique and has impact." Yeah, impact.
Yeah, so, looking at this thing, it looks like some weird organism, something you'd see through a microscope.
You know, Twitter has already gone crazy about this. Japanese Twitter has already given him a name. Koroshite-kun, or Mr. Kilmi.
You know, like in South Park, they often... did you ever see the South Park with Towley? And they had all the Towley... the like version 1 and version 2 of him,
And like, yeah, some of them are kind of like all messed up.
and they're like, kill me, kill me, please.
Yeah, that's what that logo is like.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks totally nuts.
It looks gross.
Yeah. Indeed, the logo looks like a strange monstrosity that has somehow been thrust into the world and wants to die.
You know, it kind of looks like a weird octopus donut with a bunch of googly eyes in all kinds of different directions. I mean, it looks like something that your stereotypical hillbilly would say, well, that just don't look right.
Jim, get the shotgun. We got to kill this thing.
Yeah, get rid of all that birdshot. We're going to need buckshot for this one. We don't want him to suffer any.
It is the weirdest looking squirrel I ever seen, I swear to God.
I don't know which of the eyes are looking at me or not, but there's a bunch of them.
Already, Japanese Twitter users have made fan art of sorts, including putting Mr. Kilmi inside famous anime and making AR and pixel art versions.
What's your name? Well, you know, if generating a buzz was the idea, mission accomplished.
For sure, for sure. Of course, it's inevitable that all of the foreign attendees will likely find it gross, repulsing even, and it will surely be the butt of many, many jokes to come.
You know, this is really funny because the Expo, you know, the World Exposition, the target audience of the Expo is the global audience, the overseas audience. So
Right.
It's funny because Japan has this kind of love-hate relationship with this image that it seems to have gotten over the years as this weird and wacky place. But our message to the world is apparently, yeah, Japan, wacky? Yeah, bro, we're wacky as fuck.
No, it immediately reminded me of one of the films Japan is most famous for, Akira. You know, there's one of the main characters, like, he starts like growing into like this really repulsive like organism that like takes over the city. I don't know if it's like a famous scene in it, and it looks like an organism from that scene.
So the 2025 Expo, gross mascot included, the event will take place from April the 15th to October the 13th in 2025 on the artificial island of Yumeshima in the Osaka Bay area.
Sounds really nice.
People of the world, come and get grossed out.
Hopefully we don't have Corona version 5 at that time.
Oh God, nobody's put some... He could be... If you just put little squigglies on the edges, he could be a big coronavirus.
Oh man, what if like the coronavirus at that time looks exactly like that? How did Japan know?
I'll have to arrest the creator. You've mutated it!
All right, and coming up next on Yena Yena Bill, y'all, we're going to be talking about Japan's tourism industry and the Go To Travel campaign.
You're now listening to Tokyo Wave.
Yena Yena Bill, y'all.
So, Japan's tourism sector is pinning their hopes on Tokyo's addition to this Go To Travel campaign. But is Tokyo on board?
GG Press reported that the possibility of Tokyo being added to the government's Go To Travel campaign as early as next month is winning support from the tourism industry, although there are concerns that it may lead to the spread of the novel coronavirus.
Duh. And also, duh. Trips to and from Tokyo are currently excluded from the Go To campaign, which is a travel discount campaign, which started originally on July the 22nd, or otherwise right in the damn middle of the coronavirus outbreak in Japan. But Tokyo was at the last second removed from the list of prefectures that were allowed to participate in this campaign due to the spread of the virus.
According to an official of a major travel agency, Tokyo is the center of Japanese tourism. Including it will have a significant impact.
An unnamed official of a Tokyo hotel was also upbeat about the possible change, saying that demand will likely increase.
An official at Hato Bus Co., which offers bus tours around Tokyo, expressed hope that the trend to avoid Tokyo as a travel destination will disappear once it is included in the Go To Travel campaign. Some 70% of Hato Bus's clients are from outside Tokyo.
The official said, "I hope the addition of Tokyo will make people think that it is okay to come visit Tokyo."
Economic Revitalization Minister Yasutoshi Nishimura, who is in charge of the government's response to the epidemic, told a Diet meeting Wednesday that the government will decide in September whether to include Tokyo in the campaign, citing an analysis by an expert that new coronavirus cases in the capital are on a declining trend after peaking in around late July.
Our numbers are going down. We got to push those numbers back up. Hey, for the economy. Even outside Tokyo, many tourist spots are hoping that this addition will lead to a spike in visitors. A spike, eh? A cluster, maybe?
Yeah, for sure.
Ugh.
An official of a hotel in Sapporo said, "There are few customers from Tokyo. It's really the effect of Tokyo's exclusion."
But at the same time, the resurgence of coronavirus cases in Tokyo has not fully subsided, making many worry that this addition would lead to a spike in infection cases once again that could spread nationwide.
Some regions, such as remote islands, are not in a state to welcome visitors from Tokyo due to a lack of medical facilities that can take in coronavirus patients with severe symptoms.
I remember right after Obon, there was worry that the travel to Okinawa would overwhelm the local medical facilities in Okinawa. And indeed, I do think there was a certain spike in the number of cases, but it didn't seem to be too devastating.
Yeah, it's funny. Even at my full-time job, a lot of customers and our distributors who are local in remote, Inaka areas will refuse to meet with us right now because we're from Tokyo. So there's definitely this very interesting discrimination of people from Tokyo.
The Scarlet Letter. According to the Ministry of Land Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism, at least 4.2 million people have used the Go-To campaign in roughly 1 month since its launch. However, many of the people who use this program chose areas close to their homes versus areas far away from their homes as their travel destination.
Analysts have warned that the inclusion of Tokyo in the campaign may only lead to Tokyoites making short-distance trips and people living near Tokyo traveling to the capital, limiting the benefits of the policy in the metropolitan area.
Tokyo's Governor Yuriko Koike made no specific comments on the central government's plan to make a decision in September on whether to add Tokyo to the campaign. She told reporters at the Tokyo Metropolitan Government Building on August the 26th that, "We are now working to prevent the spread of the virus."
Koike also added, "We are asking people and businesses in Tokyo for cooperation and would like to seek their continued understanding."
Which is basically a roundabout way of saying, go to campaign can go to hell.
Yeah, well said. Having the travel campaign in the middle of the pandemic just shows how much of a bureaucratic mess the government here is. And not really, I hate to be so harsh on the Japanese government. I think they've done a lot of good. But, all world governments are in this really, really conundrum of what do we do to boost the economy? And yeah, obviously travel tourism is the biggest hit right now. So they're trying to do things that will help those industries. But man, if there was ever a time to not travel, now is the time.
And it's really tough to make an educated decision on what the best course of action here is, because obviously the more people move around, the more risk there is that the virus will spread. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, until, January 2020, Japan was having unprecedented levels of foreign tourism.
Right.
All of the country's tourism operators had infrastructure and employment and infrastructure ready for this massive wave of foreign tourists, which was only expected to increase.
Yep.
So this sudden absolute reversal in the tide from a whole bunch of tourists to no foreign tourists is most certainly a devastating shock to the system for these companies, and not just big hotel chains, but also small mom and pop ryokans and other local attractions and operators.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've heard so many stories too of a lot of these smaller operators taking out, loans to help finance, just reconstruction or reforming of their current shops or hotels, buying new properties to house more guests for the Olympics and whatnot. Who knows what the outcome will be on the economy, especially here in Japan. I think we're going to see shocks everywhere. I don't think anyone can forecast or tell how bad it's going to be, but
when you have a real big problem with these smaller companies, especially, even something as simple as restaurants. For instance, our studio is here in Omotesando, close to Harajuku, and already I'm seeing dozens and dozens of restaurants, and it's always the smaller restaurants closing their doors for good.
Yeah.
And obviously, they're not closing their doors because they want to. They're closing their doors probably because they ran out of money.
Exactly.
They're not coming back.
Yeah, it's very, very sad. I really can't think, I don't think there's ever been anything like this while we were alive, and even in our parents' generation too. We're hearing stories of shops that have been around for 50 years plus that are closing. So,
well, I'm reminded that from September, it looks like foreign residents are going to be allowed to come back into the country. Of course, until the end of August, foreign residents, including ourselves, were not allowed to come back into Japan if they had left Japan unless there were special circumstances.
Right. Yeah, we heard the leak from NHK last week, but I was expecting to hear some kind of big announcement this week, but it makes sense that they're probably going to get all of the procedural stuff in order before they announce, because as soon as they announce, the next day, people in Australia, Taiwan that have been waiting to come here for 6 months.
There's going to be some go-to-ing happening soon.
Yeah.
Well, it's unknown, of course, what exactly is going to happen in the coming months, but it's also a big question, when is Japan going to start to reel out foreign tourists?
Right.
I mean, obviously, there's still no timeline on that, but this is another factor that cannot be ignored because obviously the domestic travel industry is limited in scale. And, of course, some areas benefit more from domestic tourists than they do foreign tourists, but I would say by and large that foreign tourism is a pretty large percentage.
Right. And just the growth in foreign tourism, it's been unprecedented, as we've both seen over the past 10 years.
Well, one thing that the Japanese government is starting to try to promote is this idea of staycations. And there's a good reason for this. When the average Japanese vacationer goes on a vacation, they do it at light speed. I mean, you talk about, you often hear people talking about day trips, and that literally means they're back the same day. They don't stay anywhere.
Yeah, they'll do like a snowboarding day trip from Tokyo during the winter, right?
And, you can do that because Japan's transportation infrastructure is so great.
Yeah.
But that also comes at the expense of these local tourism operators, because if all of these tourists are zooming in and zooming out, they don't have a whole lot of time to stick around and buy their stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm sure. And, just monitoring it and knowing friends that have come here, when they come to Japan, they come for a long time, at least 2 weeks. Most people, right? 10 days to 2 weeks at least. Some friends, a month, 2 months, and they hang out. They spend lots of money at lots of different restaurants, places.
I think there's no easy answer to this, but one of the questions that needs to be answered is, how can you change Japan's domestic tourism culture? Because these lightning fast tourism trends are also not really great if you look at it from a coronavirus perspective. Usually when you do things quickly, you're using lots of public transportation and you're doing things in groups like, day trips via bus tour, and it ends up being a situation where there's a high infection risk.
Right.
An alternative to that, such as a staycation, might be a more solo or family-based excursion, which is done at a more leisurely pace and likely done in less crowded areas, because it would happen not just during the weekend when everywhere is crowded, but also during the week. And of course, one of the ideas here is that as various Japanese companies promote telework or working remotely, the people on these staycations will be able to continue to do their job while they're at their destination.
That would be ideal. Some kind of like remote work staycation bundle trip, right? But that's going to require a lot of big leaps with big companies here in Japan. And
big leaps.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were a regular, run-of-the-mill Japanese salaryman and you told your boss, well, I'm just going to go to, Kyushu for 2 weeks. Staycation. But I'm still on the clock.
Yeah.
Peace. I mean, we both worked in Japanese companies. I mean,
it would not fly. I think even if they okayed it, at the end of the day, they'd be like, you're going to have to take vacation, No.
What's more likely to happen is they'd be like, okay, and then you come back and it's, please resign. We've decided that the culture fit just isn't right. Yeah. Bye. Have fun on your vacation. You can take a really long one now. So, until that aspect of Japanese business culture changes, staycations, they're just sort of pie in the sky.
Yeah. No, it's funny you bring up the fact how short-winded these domestic trips are, because it's nuts. Yeah, Obon is maybe packed in 3 days, and then end of the year will be another 3 to 4 days, and the Japanese pack it in, like you were saying. I remember I was asking a coworker, I was going back to the States for 2 weeks, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm visiting my family down in Shikoku. I leave tonight. How long are you going to be there? Oh, I'm flying back tomorrow. So it's damn, man. Take some of those saved up vacation days and relax with your family.
But my boss might not like that. Well, one of the biggest problems with the idea of a staycation is the simple fact that staying in hotels or pensions or whatever in Japan, it's pretty expensive. And there are not a lot of low-cost options like a hostel or a a more budget-style accommodation that would be large enough to be the sort of place where you'd want to spend a couple of weeks. Because, you look around Japan and you look at the more budget accommodations in mid-sized cities or rural areas, and it's all these business hotels, which are basically 15 square meter shoebox. You don't really want to be doing any Zoom calls in there. People think you got arrested and you're in prison. And they're old, and most of them smell like cigarettes, and they're just not very fun places to spend any amount of time, let alone 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So obviously, what are people going to do about the accommodations? Because, your average person isn't going to be able to stay at a, full service ryokan for 2 weeks unless they want to separate themselves from $20,000.
Yeah. It's sad too. A lot of, when I first came to Japan, I definitely did the hostels and the guest houses a lot. And at the time, I think, this is when Facebook was just getting started. I followed them on Facebook, and I've looked them up, or I've seen it pop up in my feed, and some of them have shut down, ones that have been in operation for 20 years. But, back in the day when I would use these hostels, it was no Japanese. It was just like Koreans, Americans, British, weren't a lot of Japanese utilizing these.
That's right. And it's, I think there's a cultural aspect there. There's not this sort of precedent or culture of using hostels or these kind of budget accommodations unless they're these teeny tiny business hotels.
Right.
There is one company, though, that is trying to change this trend. There's a Tokyo-based news service called Address with ADD in capital letters and the rest in lowercase. And it is a Tokyo-based service that for a set monthly fee of, I think it starts at 40,000 yen or $400 a month, you can stay an unlimited time in one of their over 50 facilities across Japan.
Wow.
And so what they did is they bought all of these old houses or larger houses or kind of hostel style accommodation spots across Japan, mainly in rural areas, and each place sort of has a house master.
Okay.
And essentially, if you pay this subscription, you can stay at any of these houses perpetually.
Wow, that's really cool.
And the reason why it's called Address is obviously if you're in Japan, you need to have a registered address. So with the Address service, it touts that you can make your address any one of these 50 addresses.
That's really sweet.
So whether you want your registered address to be in Tokyo or Fukuoka or Iwate, you can do that.
Nice. I'll have to check this out. Yeah, if it's starting from Yoman in, that's a sweet deal right there.
Well, over the past few years, because of the rise of remote work and this idea of digital nomads, and obviously whenever you go into a Starbucks in Tokyo, you'll see lots of digital nomads hogging up the space by the window with their MacBook.
Yeah, I know for sure.
And these people obviously eventually want to graduate from coffee shops. And some of these people are full remote. They're fully remote workers. So this service was really created with that sort of person in mind who doesn't need to be in Tokyo.
Right.
And especially around these times, might be nice to not be in Tokyo for a few months or many months.
Yeah. That sounds really cool. It sounds like a nice spin on Airbnb mixed with, good old-fashioned Japanese hospitality. Have to check that out.
So, Aaron, thinking you're going to go on any staycations anytime soon?
I'm not really a staycation kind of guy. I love working remote and working from home. But I mean, if I start traveling, I like to be disconnected, especially in Japan, right? If I'm going to Kyoto or, even Hakone or something, I definitely want to have that disconnected feeling. Although I do post on Instagram obsessively, but from work, right? I want that disconnectedness.
It's funny. I think definitely during the COVID days we're experiencing right now, I saw an article from the United States actually, but one thing I did feel was that when people are going on vacation right now, they're a little bit more hesitant to share those pictures because they're worried about people accusing them of potentially spreading the coronavirus or just rubbing it in their face that they're allowed to go on a vacation.
No, actually, that's one of the reasons when I went to Kyoto, I was posting a lot because I'm like, nobody's posting right now. This is a great time to like.
well, Aaron, did you get lots of likes?
No, it was pretty fun. I think a lot of my friends, especially back in the States, got to live through my vacation. I got a lot of messages from people I haven't heard from in years, so that was really cool.
And of course, secretly, they're all mad jelly and want you to die.
Stuck in the U.S. Escape from L.A. You ever seen that movie, Escape from L.A.?
Yeah, it's it was Escape from New York too, right?
Yeah, there's two of them. What's that actor's name?
I gotta have the third one, Escape from the whole U.S.
Escape from USA. I bet they'll be based out of London, and they'll send them. They always send them in some ridiculous way, right? Yeah. Kurt Russell, that's who it is.
Kurt, we need you. This time, it's gonna be a real pain in the ass.
They've got to send them in to infiltrate the USA. Oh my gosh!
But which president are they gonna have to rescue?
Oh yeah, that's always like the plot, right? It's the president or the president's daughter. Hey listeners, that's right, you listener right there.
Who do you think should be our next guest on Tokyo Wave? Let us know. Drop us a line at wave@tokyowave.jp. Also, heads up, we're going to be having some new guests in the coming weeks, so stay tuned.
We hope you enjoyed Tokyo Wave.
If you haven't already, you can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. And also, you can follow Tokyo Wave on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Join us again next week on Tokyo Wave.
Splash!